Hi everyone. We are working on this. We are writing polynomials from zeros. We're taking polynomials and finding the zeros. Now we're going to take the information is we're going to have the zeros and we'll write the polynomials. So we're kind of going in the reverse. In order for that to happen, I need you to have this corollary of the factor theorem. We're going to use that. And this just says if r is a root or a zero of a polynomial, then x minus r is a factor of the polynomial. Okay, so if I'm giving, so for example, if I have something like, I know 3 is a 0, x minus 3, this binomial is a factor. And so we're going to take all the roots or zeros when we do this, the steps, and convert them to binomial factors. So if they say 3 is a factor, we're going to convert that to a binomial factor. If 3 is a 0, we're going to convert it to the binomial factor x minus 3. Then we're just going to multiply all the binomial factors together. So it's a lot of multiplying, and you're good at that. So we shouldn't fret about that. So here's example 1 is where we have all real factors. I'm going to write a polynomial of least degree that has 7, -2, and 1 as zeros. So here's my polynomial function. So I'll say f of x. I have to take x minus 7, that goes with the 7, x minus -2, which will be x plus 2, and x minus 1, because 1 is the third 0 that we were given. You just multiply 2 at a time. I'm going to FOIL these two. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. -7 times x is -7x. -7 times 2 is -14. So when I multiply the first two together, I have x squared. 2x minus 7x is -5x. And then minus 14. So now I'm going to take that product multiplied by x minus 1. I think I'll use a box when I have this. That's a trinomial, so foiling won't work directly. You can do some offshoot of that if you want, but I'm going to put x squared, -5x, and -14 here, and x and -1. I could have done that with the x minus 7 times x plus 2 as well. That's an option. So x squared times x is x to the third. -5x times x is -5x squared. -14 times x is -14x. X squared times -1 is -1x squared. -5x times -1 is +5x. -14 times -1 is +14. Alright, now my final answer. F of x equals x cubed. Combine these like terms. -1x squared and -5x squared is -6x squared. 5x and -14x is -9x when you add those. And then you have your constant plus 14. Okay, so this is a polynomial. If we put it into Desmos, it would hit the x-axis at 7, -2, and 1. Okay, now this was an example where we had all real factors. We have to introduce, if some of the factors are not real, some of them are imaginary, we need the complex conjugate theorem to finish that. Now what that says, if a plus bi is a 0 of the polynomial, so this is an imaginary 0 of the polynomial, then a minus bi is also a 0. So these two are called conjugates of each other. They're complex conjugates. If one is a 0, they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. If we're going to have a polynomial that has just real coefficients. All right, so let's do an example that uses that. This is one that has real and imaginary roots. It says, write a polynomial of least degree that has 3 and 2 minus I as factors. Okay, so the zeros, let me change that. Let's change that as zeros, not factors. We'll get to converting the zeros to factors later here. The zeros are 3, 2 minus I, and then the complex conjugate theorem says we have to have a buddy with this one, 2 plus I, it's conjugate. Can't have one without the other. Now, I would encourage you to, so our factors, we're going to multiply our x minus 3. Okay, I need you to be real careful with these signs when we have the complex roots here, the imaginary roots. X minus, and I'm going to put 2 minus I in parentheses. And then x minus, and it's always minus, and I'm going to put 2 plus I in an inner set of parentheses within that factor. I'm going to write this over as x minus 3, and this is x minus 2 and a negative negative, that's plus I, and this is x minus 2 minus I. Okay, personally, you got to multiply 2 together, get your answer, and multiply the third. If I'm doing this, I am going to multiply these two together. And if I'm going to multiply those together, I'm going to make a box. A 3 by 3 box. I'll put this one up here. X, negative 2, and I. This one, X, negative 2, and negative I. I'm going to multiply these two together. I'm going to write my f of x equals here. But we got to take that further. So, because we're writing a polynomial of least degree. And our polynomial will not, hopefully, will not have any imaginary parts to it. Let's see what happens. X times x is x squared. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. X times I, I'll just write as ix. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Negative 2, or I times negative 2 is negative 2i. X times negative I is negative ix. Negative 2 times negative I is 2i. Negative I times I is negative I squared. Alright, now let's remember this, that's negative, and that I squared is negative 1, so this is actually, this box is equal to 1. Okay? So, what are we getting here? We are getting x squared, negative 2x and negative 2x. These two add up to 4x. Negative ix and positive ix cancel out. Positive 2i and negative 2i cancel out. 4 plus 1. I got 4 here and 5 here. Didn't cancel with anything. 4 here, 1 here. That is 5. So this times this is equal to this. Don't forget, we still have the x minus 3. So, I'm going to make another box. I've got x squared, 4x, and 5. And I've got x minus 3. X squared times x is x cubed. X times 4x is 4x squared. X times 5 is 5x. X squared times negative 3 is negative 3x squared. Negative 3 times 4x is negative 12x. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Alright, so f of x is equal to, here's my final answer, x cubed. 4x squared and negative 3x squared is 1x squared. Negative 12x plus 5x is negative 7x. And then negative 15. Alright, there you have it. So, let's understand, you had this and this. You need to say, well, if I have this, I've got this. That's the complex conjugate theorem as my third zero. And that'll give me the least degree. 3 is the least degree we can have here. And I want you to be real careful right here. This 2 minus I is in parentheses. This 2 plus I is in parentheses. And then when you distribute the negative, look what you get. And then just be careful with your multiplying there. All right, there you have it, guys.